Another week in the Missouri Senate. I would just say it's 194 days until the Republican primary. I don't know if Missouri's going to make it that long, but more of the same that we've seen the last few weeks of the infighting, and the next step in what we've seen, this inter-fighting Republican civil war. So with that, I'll take any questions.
It sounds like they want to bring some kind of education reform to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
What's your sense of what that might be, and what's the caucus's views on that?
I think that anything talking about coming to the floor is premature at this point.
Okay.
I mean, really, anything. I mean, you can't even begin to have discussions about policy at this point because they're unable to get through the orders of business. And I think that it's a distraction to even begin to talk about policy as if it's even in play. I mean, truthfully. I mean, obviously, we are not for, by and large, ESAs or vouchers or a lot of that stuff. But I'll be more than happy to get down that road whenever it appears that the logjam on the floor is dissolved.
I have to ask this question because I spoke to the governor about it this morning when he said that the Democrats have it pretty easy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you have it easy, or would you rather see a functioning Senate? I
said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't leave my family 4 days a week to make $36,000 a year to watch Republicans bloviate about how much they love Donald Trump and who a rhino is and who isn't. Every person in this chamber ran for public office to make a difference in the state. Every one of us. And we're not even able to get off first base to have our ideas vetted because it has turned into reality TV. Because more people in the Republican Party, which is now dominant in the state of Missouri, unfortunately, are more interested in watching a reality TV show than they are about taking care of single moms or raising wages or making sure our schools are funded or making sure we have the necessary tools in societies for people to lift themselves out of poverty and succeed. So it's hard to watch that, I mean, I know we're all supposed to be jubilant that Republicans are fighting each other, but it's hard to watch the Senate die.
Can you compare this session so far with the other ones you've served in?
No, it stands alone. I apologize to cut you off. If there's more to that, I'll go back to you. But no, this session absolutely stands alone. I think it was predictable coming in by the social media posts that we saw from the Freedom Caucus, by the vitriol that we've seen back and forth just nationally. I expected to come into this and see something similar. I didn't think the vitriol would be this much this soon. I will also say to that point that doing this in January is a lot different than doing it in the middle of February and March. And we'll see how sustainable it is. As somebody who has partaken in filibusters and trying to slow down legislation, it's real fun. At first you think, oh, we're gonna have these big wins, but then you get into day 4. Then you get into week 7. Then you get into, just before spring break. And it's not as sexy. It's been normalized. And you guys have stopped covering it because it becomes so dysfunctional. And then next thing you know, it's just you in an empty chamber speaking to a dais, hoping that, somebody picks up on your message.
What do you think about how many votes do you think there would be in the Democratic caucus to expel Senator Hyperbole?
I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I wouldn't vote for that. I mean, I can tell you, Jack, I would by and large say that the Democratic caucus, I would advise them to not support removing someone from the chamber that was duly elected.
And what's the reason for that?
You're duly elected. It's democracy. I mean, truthfully, it's the people of St. Charles need to deal with who they send down to Jefferson City or Harrisonville or wherever it is. I mean, that's the issue, right? I mean, it's within the Republican Party. It's the primaries. It's the hyperbole that wins the day, not policy, not progress, nothing. It's who's going to have the most hyperbolic statement this week. And you have to keep raising the temperature in order to get people to watch you. And that's what we've seen over and over again. I mean, you're seeing in Washington, Mitch McConnell's readily admitting that they don't want to solve the immigration problem because Donald Trump wants to run on it. What would they talk about? If the immigration problem got solved today in Washington, D.C., what on earth would they run on? I mean, this is not about helping people for them. It's about gaining more power. It's about raising the temperature so that the cameras stay on them. It's screaming on the floor. It's pointing at the floor leader. It's everybody texting me about how insane this is and look at this and look at that. And in the meantime, a single mom's trying to make ends meet. And you know, it's sad. It's sad to watch it. It's sad to watch the Senate die.
Going back to the initiative petition, is this year and the inaction and dysfunction a good example of the importance of the initiative petition process?
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans in the 90s would tell you that the Hancock Amendment is a good reason why the initiative petition process is important. I mean, I had dinner with one the other day, and he was like, yeah, in the 90s, which my dad was in the majority back then, you guys know that. I mean, they went around the legislature, and they passed the Hancock Amendment, which they tout today, which was a fiscally conservative, responsible thing that the voters approved. I mean, look, slice it however you want. This is the beginning of the end. I mean, they look like 1998 Democrats. Period. Trust me, I know a lot of them. One of them works for me. This is what it looked like.
Are you sure people are receiving that message out?
I don't think they care.
Yeah.
I don't think they care because it's so personal. It's all about the next election. It's about the next cycle. And they don't care the destruction they leave behind them because they're not going to be here. That's why they have to cut taxes to the bone. That's why they have to do measures like arrest women for having an abortion for murder, because they've cut so far to the bone, they can't see the progress because they'll be gone. So they need to see it right now so they can run on it. So they don't care about tomorrow. It's about today for next November, every time, or in this case, August, because they've gotten rid of general elections for the most part with the same model. I think it's almost comical they're using the model against their own party that they used against Democrats to win their elections. And they've contorted and lied about Democrats for over a decade. You know, we used to try to give people health care, and they would scream, Obama's a socialist. We tried to explain it, like Senator O'Loughlin's trying to do, like Senator Rowden's trying to do. They're trying to explain it to this rabid base. And you can't. You can't, because people just want that hyperbole in the Republican Party. They've been conditioned for that 10-second hyperbolic statement. And you tried to explain policy to them. It's not policy, it's entertainment.
Are there any rule changes that Democrats could support that would move things along in the Senate, or is it just a lost cause? Or?
I think look, I have an open door for anybody. I mean, I've worked with senators from the Freedom Caucus before. I've worked with senators from the other caucus, I guess if there's two, before. I mean, the bottom line is we work with whoever we need to work with in order to have a functioning Senate, or when our like-mindedness comes together. So, you know, I would work with Senator Eigel tomorrow if there was a way to figure out how to return something to normalcy. Obviously, we disagree vehemently on the issues, and that's where the rubber meets the road. So, you know, does it benefit us at a certain point that all this is happening? Yes. Is it good for Missouri? Absolutely not. Is it good for the Senate? Absolutely not. And it's even worse for the people that just got here, that will never know what a real Senate looks like.
Well, I'm going to ask a similar question about
Sure.
Senator Rowden about the appointments. I'm sure some people will cry a lot of tears if, like, Francis Slay can't serve on the transportation board. But as I mentioned, there are a couple appointees on there who lead really complex and difficult departments. Is there any concern that, like, they may not be able to serve anymore, and that could have a real impact on, like, DSS or Department of Mental Health functioning?
Yeah, look, again, it's normalizing it. Could one of them do the same thing that Donald Trump's administration did when they couldn't get confirmation of their cabinet heads and serve in an acting role? Yeah, they could. It's a flaw in the system, right? You can create the best system in the world. If bad people run it, it's going to be messed up. And so, yeah, would the department survive? Yes, they would. The fact that we're having that conversation is the problem. And that's where the brakes need to be pumped by everybody. We're sitting here talking about the idea that the governor of his own party cannot get the supermajority Republican Party in the House and Senate to confirm his Republican appointees by and large. There's like 3 Democrats in there, I think. So, and they have to be Democrats, by the way, in those certain boards. So, I mean, we should all pull back and stop normalizing what it looks like to run government in the state. And that's not towards you by any means, because I think even us as Democrats, we get normalized to it too, right? Like, people are just, oh, there they go again, and it's not okay. It's not okay to run DSS with somebody that's not confirmed. That should be a problem. And it's not going to be a problem because it's the best they can do in a supermajority red Republican state.
First off, it's kind of a two-part question. I want to ask about teachers after this.
Hmm?
How did you think Governor Parsons' speech went yesterday, leaving $1.5 billion on the bottom line after the budget? He didn't mention a lot of policies. Just your overall response to his speech first.
Sure. I think it was a very personal speech to him. He's obviously given decades of service to the state, so you can tell that it was a meaningful speech to him and it was personal. Obviously, we agree with the encouragement to teachers, increasing teacher pay, funding the transportation formula fully for the second time, which is a big deal. A lot of people, I think, underestimate that. We had never done that in a long, well, I don't know, never, but we had not done that in decades. And so that's a big deal, increase to the bottom line when it comes to public education funding. And so, we agree with that type of stuff, but look, it's a double-edged sword. I don't agree with the fact that he was the first governor after Dobbs to ban abortion in the state of Missouri. I don't agree with the fact that their tax policy the last decade or 2 decades is cut to the bone so badly that the federal government has had to prop up the state of Missouri. There's things that I don't agree with. For sure. But by and large, he's done well with the infrastructure money and rebuilding I-70 that was afforded to us by the Biden administration. He's done well with teachers in schools and transportation, and he should be proud of those accomplishments. At the same time, we'll fight tooth and nail to return the rights to women over their bodies.
My question about the teachers is the $40,000 is still not in statute. So even if you guys do approve it this year, state statute says that teacher pay is still $25,000.
Yeah.
And so do you believe that it's time to actually change state statute
Yes.
instead of just allowing these grants?
Yes, it's been well timed. Absolutely. I had some teachers in my office the other day from different schools, and they're all having a tough time with retention. You just have a generation that is right now in all walks of life retiring, right? You have a lot of the baby boomers that are they're going into retirement. A lot of those people were teachers, and they're trying to have to replace a lot of people all at once, as most industries kind of are. So, you have a lot of factors going into what it means to be a teacher today that weren't there, say, 20 years ago. So they're having a tough time recruiting. They're having a tough time in retention, especially when you start talking about school violence. You start talking about kids and guns in schools. You start talking about a lot of those issues. Yes, absolutely. Time to codify it in statute.
Last question?
What can this abortion rights campaign in Missouri learn from the vote in Kansas a couple years ago?
They're going to lose. The Republican Party is going to lose this.
Yeah.
They will lose it. And quite honestly, I would hope, and I wish more Democrats would be wanting the fight, because they will lose in August if they put IP on in August, and then they will lose in November as well. But they don't care about the issue. It's about getting their base out so they can win their primaries or they can win their general elections. They will lose up and down the ballot in November. It is unequivocal. Kansas and Ohio, Kentucky, there is no reason to think otherwise. And, I am having plenty of conversations with people in my caucus and throughout the state to try to get people to understand that maybe having this on the ballot isn't terrible. Because I'm telling you right now, the fight's coming. And at some point, they're going to have to, get their butt kicked before they realize that this state doesn't have an appetite for their policies, whether that be abortion or guns or a variety of other issues. But at some point, you gotta have the fight. And I will add to that it is extremely telling, with all of the issues that are out there, the number one priority of the Republican Party is to take people's voice away at the ballot box. It's been said for a week. The number one priority of the Republican Party, they said in their caucus, the number one priority, not just Freedom Caucus, the entire caucus, number one priority is to stop access to the ballot box for the state of Missouri. The number one priority. Not education, not teachers, not crime, none of it. The number one priority that's been espoused on this floor by the Republican Party in this state is to eliminate the ability for Missourians to go to the ballot box with issues. That should tell you all you need to know about the Republican Party in the state of Missouri. So, thank you.